Hi everyone, and welcome to Metal Storm Arms. J and G here, and today we are going to be working on a giant steampunk wrench. This thing is going to be
6 feet tall. It was 7 feet, and I had 3 feet for a certain part, and I decided that we would cut that down by
There
a
was
foot.
some debate on how tall to make it. We went with 6 feet. That seems pretty big. This is going to be part of G's new steampunk costume that we will see at Enchanted City in Troy, New York in just a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, as you can see, we are in the new art studio. Though it's not quite finished yet.
We still need to do the countertops on these shelves.
Yes, we're about a day away from getting the countertops in here and then finally being able to unpack. But I put that project aside so that we could get this going today. We worked up the templates a couple months ago, but because of the move and everything, we got delayed. We were thinking of putting together a giant build video, but I think we're going to put the design in a behind the scenes that we will share with you later this month too. So, without further ado, let's get started. So
we already have some of the pipes, like the corners and tees set up.
We kind of laid everything out so we could get a sense of what we're looking at, and that's how we decided how tall we're going to make this thing, how big we're going to make this thing.
Yeah. If you were to lay down next to it, it would be a tiny bit taller than you.
Yeah, at 7 feet tall, it's bigger than me, so that's
that's why we want to cut it down a bit.
It makes it a little big for G. So the first thing we're going to need to do is get our templates transferred onto our foam.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to figure out how these pieces are going to fit inside. We've sort of got everything laid out to get a sense of it, but once we start cutting foam is when
it really begins.
yeah, so that's when we'll really sort of see how everything's going to fit together. We have a Sharpie, we have foam, and we have templates. Oh, that's what I'm missing. Pins. We should pin our template down so it doesn't slide away from us.
Yes.
Anyone who has followed along with the written instructions that we did for Backbiter has seen us do all this before. Of course, if you've also watched any of those other foam smiths out there, the awesome work of Punished Props or Evil Ted, and you've seen this all happen before there too. So this piece is designed to be symmetrical, so it's not going to matter. We're not going to have to worry about flipping this template to get our layers. It's not going to be the case when we do the head.
Are we going to unpin this now and then repin it in the other position there?
Making sure our knife is nice and sharp. That's an important thing when you're cutting foam. For some reason, foam dulls up knives very fast. You know, we don't have a fancy knife sharpener right now, but
we have a mug.
The unglazed edge of any piece of ceramic pot, bottom of a coffee mug, is actually same material that a lot of knife sharpeners are made out of. So you give that a few good rubs over there and keep that cup handy so you can keep doing it as you go. And keep the knife blade sharp. So we flipped our template over, made 2 more. We now have 4 wrench heads. Wahoo. And we're going to need to cut these parts off of our template. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of foam here that make up the bottom. Yes, I realized as I was starting to cut them out that I was going to need 2 more of these than we actually traced.
That's why you don't throw away your templates before you're done with your whole entire thing.
Exactly. And
It's the
there's all the foam for the top part of our ridge. Yeah, I cut out pieces there so we could grab the teeth out of those.
it's not.
Whoa, yes.
Yeah.
So, what do we need to do next? Next we're going to need to cut our PVC skeleton and get it fitted inside here. I'm going to need to cut some PVC and get it fitted inside there like so. And then we'll be able to, once we figured out exactly how long all these pieces are going to need to be, and get them put together, we can trace them onto our foam, and then cut out the channels that they will fit into. Okay, so we've got our foam laid out here, and I've laid out about where we want all of the bends in our skeleton to go on both pieces here. Our next step will be to measure those gaps and then add what we've calculated as being as much of the PVC pipe that's going to fit inside each of these joints. Often your best way of doing that really is to just kind of press these on there as far as I think you can get them on there, and make a mark right up in there with a pen or whatever you're going to be able to get as close to that as possible with. Pen or pencil's usually best, and then you can measure that out. And that's what you'll add to the distance between all your different pieces. So now that we have a skeleton, we can start to get a sense of what this thing's going to actually look like when we're done. Now we just need to trace out how these pieces lay down onto our foam, so we can cut those channels out of the 2 middle layers in here where they will nestle in there nicely and hold everything together for us. And now that we've cut the channels for our PVC out of both pieces, now it's time to glue this stuff together. There's a number of different types of glue you can use on EVA. We're going to use contact cement. So here we go. We have a fully assembled giant pipe wrench. Pretty awesome. This thing stands about 6 feet tall and is super light. And as I feared, this PVC is just a little thin to deal with this mass of foam up here. So we're going to have to reinforce that at some point. But our next step, well, our next couple steps are going to come in quick succession here. Now that everything's put together, now we can come back in here with where we've got some bits where the edges didn't line up right. We can trim that with the knife, or we can come in here with a rotary tool and smooth those out, come around some of our edges. Also come in here with a knife and add some of our detailing. We're going to want to put like a cross hatching pattern on this, because this is that big nut that lets you make this whole part slide up and down. So that's going to have a grippy texture to it. There need to be threads cut in here in these 2 pieces. So there's some techniques we use for that. And we're going to have to cut the teeth out of here too. But some techniques we can use for this. Since our next step after that is going to be to come in here and hit this with the heat gun to seal all the pores of the foam. It'll also make places where we have cuts start to separate a little bit as the foam shrinks under the heat. So all we really need to kind of do is come here and just do a cross-hatching pattern with the knife, and we'll hit that with the heat gun. It's all going to separate a little bit more and pop. I'm not entirely sure if I want to use the same technique for the threads yet, or if I actually want to carve some material out so that that's more more prominent. I do think I'm going to actually cut the teeth in a little V patterns out of this, and yeah, we're going to do a little bit of tapering down towards the bottom here. Again, we're going to round these edges. We'll use a rotary tool for fun stuff like that. Then we'll heat seal it. Then, once the foam has been heat sealed, we can come in here and we can clean up our seams with a silicone caulk. Get any gaps in our seams out back here the same way. And then once that cures, we'll be on to sealing the whole thing with a coat of plasti dip. Okay, so I got ahead of myself because I was on a roll.
Yeah, so it's painted.
So let's see, last time I think you saw this, I still hadn't plasti dipped it yet, I still hadn't heat sealed it yet, so those two steps were done. Silicone sealing was done around the edges, then the plasti dip was done. Then I hit this thing, the majority of this thing, with a base coat of, what did we call it? We didn't call it anything. Soft iron. Nice gunmetal color.
Which is under the masking tape.
It's under the masking tape, because then after that had dried, I masked that all off and then hit a lot of the big flat areas with antique
brass.
Now we're going to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Masking that's there is actually masking off the PVC that I stuck this onto for painting purposes. This one is this one actually the shaft that we're using? I think so. Yes, this one will actually be the shaft of our finished product.
We need to shave down the dowel fitted inside.
Yes, I'm going to reinforce that with a wooden dowel. So, yeah, so here's a few spots that got missed, so we're definitely going to need to come back in here and touch up some of this paint job by hand. Maybe adds a little bit of, if we've got some time, we'll do some weathering. We'll add some grease in all of our crevices and stuff.
Well,
And give this thing just a little bit more character.
The head of the ranch?
Ooh, yes, actually, you know what? I'm not even sure I shot video after I carved all the teeth and stuff in. So
that might be
we
new
might
to
be
you.
revealing that here too.
Oh, boom! Last of it. Okay.
Boom.
Do you want to see textures?
Whoa.
So there's this. You can see the teeth. Can you actually see that? Yeah. So on the inside here,
Yep.
there's
See the teeth and the threads of the.
Then there's also threads here and on the inside here. And it's obviously on the outside of here. What
you think, Jay?
I like it.
Well, I know we didn't show every single detail of putting this thing together, but we did run through the steps and have seen most of those. So I hope you've been able to get a good idea of what all the steps are putting together a prop like this out of foam. Even if yours is not this big.
Yeah, we have our. This is gonna be a really big.
Pretty big.
It's.
But even if yours is not this big, a lot of the same steps are involved if these are the materials that you're working with. So, until next time, learn, make, and teach.